Welcome to a very special Sharpe Way show this evening. I wasn't planning on going live. Now I'm going live with the LPTV at 7 p.m. Eastern, and then again at 8 p.m. with Dr. Mark Goulston later on. But right now, I got a video sent to me today, earlier this afternoon, or late this morning. And I looked at it and I watched it and I thought, you know what? Maybe I should chat about this video. It's a Candace Owen video talking about her opinion on George Floyd and the issue of black violence and those types of things. And I see this very often. I've seen this before, how it works. And what I really want to be able to do here is not change your mind. You may believe that what she's saying is 100% true or 100% false. That's not what I'm trying to do. What I hope I can do here is bring what I think is a middle ground. There absolutely is a side that says Candace Owen is 100% correct and a side that says she's completely horrible and evil. And what I want to do is show you where the reality actually is. And what I hope to get out of everyone watching is one important thing: empathy. I know that may sound cheesy, but stay with me. It will be worth it. All I want from you is some empathy and understanding. As Elvis Costello said, what's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? Nothing. It is what we need to grow forward and then go past. And I think what Candace did was just as bad as what people she says she doesn't like did, because it is divisive, and I think we can control that better. So I want to start to share some of this so you understand what I'm talking about, and I'm going to cover a lot of pieces. I'm doing this off the cuff, so I may make some errors here or there. I hope not. I'm sure you guys will get mad at me if I do. So I will go ahead and I will try to share the screen and kind of go through and explain some parts and what she's talking about.
Hello, Facebook family. I have decided to do this video. It has been weighing very heavily on my heart,
Yep.
And on my mind as well.
Sure.
And it was something that I wanted to say early on, but there were so many emotions and
Smart
so much
move.
pressure.
Yep.
For me to go with the popular opinion.
There was no pressure.
Who
That she
George
makes up.
Floyd was.
That's not true.
And sometimes
note what she says: the pressure on who George Floyd was. This is a common theme. You will see this throughout the entire chat, and this happens all the time.
it can be difficult when there are just so many external pressures to say what you believe. And this was an instance where I felt like my silence would have been better in the beginning. But the more that I think about it, I realize that we are being sold a lot of lies, and at the detriment to the Black community, at the detriment.
This is the next thing. We are being sold a lot of lies. By whom? Who's we? Whenever you hear whenever someone says something that sounds righteous, and all you hear is a bunch of pronouns, us, them, we're being sold, the powers that be, the mainstream media, all these types of things, usually that means they don't have an actual answer. This is a way of creating an us versus them mentality, putting you on her side, and then going, yeah, those people. And all of a sudden now you start believing her. It's a very powerful tool, and many people use it, not just her.
To the white community and at the detriment to America as a whole. So I want to come out and say that I do not support George Floyd and the media depiction of him as a martyr for Black America. I'm going to...
What's the media? Does she mean CNN or does she mean Fox News? What does she mean? Right? She says the media, right? Because those are the evil people, the media. No, what she actually means is left media. She means things like CNN, making him a martyr. Now, he's not a martyr for the Black community. If you look at the people who are out there upset and angry, it isn't just Black America here. So that actually isn't true. That is an exaggeration.
Explain why, and I hope that some of you guys will understand where I'm coming from.
Yep.
I have spent a considerable amount of time reading a lot of Black authors that I think are some of the most brilliant Black.
Now, this is another great tactic she used. She's very savvy in what she's doing. What she first starts to say is she makes an us versus them. That's what she creates. And then she starts saying, well, let me do Georgia. She limits that here. And then all of a sudden she says, well, I've talked to these smart people, right? These smart people. And these smart people who are linked in the way she does it with George Floyd as black men. So here are these smart black men that I'm going to talk first. This is the same as, say, a preacher, as an example, opening up a Bible, quoting Jesus, then closing the Bible and saying his or her opinion, right? So they keep that and boom, they go, right? This is association, right? Also sometimes called anchoring. So she does this. Well done. She says, hey, look at these black people that I read, and now let me tell you my story, which is just my opinion.
Americans Breathing, Walter Williams, Shelby Steele, Thomas Sowell. And I recently came across something that was an idea that was planted into my head by Shelby Steele.
And she doesn't understand why, you'll see.
I cannot forget. It is something that will stick with me for the rest of my life. And it is something that I hope for the Black Americans that are watching will stick with you for the rest of your life.
Watch.
Shelby Steele said that the Black community is unique from other communities.
It is.
Our culture is unique from other communities.
Correct.
Because we are the only community that caters to the bottom denominator of our society. Now, let me explain what that means. It means to say that not every Black American is a criminal. Not every Black American is committing crimes. But we are unique in that we are the only people that fight and scream and demand support and justice for the people in our community that are up to no good.
Now, this is what I want to bring up here. What she's doing is, what she's saying is true. I don't want to say what she's saying isn't true. It is. The nuance is missed here, and I want everyone actually watching to just understand the nuance here. Just understand the nuance. I'm not saying what she just said is wrong. She's right. What I'm saying is there's a nuance here that people aren't getting. And the nuance here is she's right. The Black American community is unique. And we do very often cater to a lower class denomination. That's often true. But why? Because the Black Americans, the descendants of slaves in America, we are the only set of slaves. And there's been many slaves throughout history where our entire culture was destroyed and taken away from us. Even the Native Americans, as we crushed and stole their land and devastated them, they still kept their names. They still kept their culture. They still kept their religion. They kept all of that even as we devastated them. Even when we were murdering, Europeans were murdering Jews in Europe, they were still Jewish. They still kept their culture. They kept all of those things. The exception to that rule throughout history is the descendant of slave in America. When we came from Africa, all of our culture was removed. That's a nuance. So how can we fall back to our older culture, right? If you're Italian American, Irish American, Jewish American, insert American there, when things were tough, and many of the Irish and the Italians and the Jews, when they came to America, they had tons of problems also. I'm not taking anything away from them. They had to get around a lot of prejudice, a lot of issues, tons of them. They did. But they could fall back to culture. They could fall back to their homeland. They could fall back to that. The one group who couldn't was Black Americans. Black Americans couldn't do that. If you're a descendant of slaves, my name is Sharpe, right? That's not my name. My name was like, I'm an Irish guy. My name is O'Connor. Is that Irish? Or whatever. And I can go back and look at no, that means some people named Sharpe owned my people, right? If your name is Freeman or White, it was a very common thing for people when they were free to change their name to Freeman or White, or to name themselves after their first president, Washington. That was very common, right? That because there was no place to go back to. That is the reason behind it. So I'm not saying she's wrong. I'm saying understand the nuance. It isn't so easy for someone who was descendant of slaves to just fall back to their culture. Of course. So what became Black culture in America? It became post-slavery America. That's what it became. Post-slavery, Jim Crow, poor is what became Black culture because that's what it was. Poor food, poor, poor, poor. That is one of the reasons. Now, when you add on top of that 100 years of apartheid after slavery, then that becomes also part of the Black culture. So yes, but the fact that someone is a criminal doesn't by default make them wrong. There is the second piece. Now, violent criminal different, and she brings it up also. But I'm saying, again, there is a nuance, and you should understand the nuance, right? Understand the nuance. What I want you to understand is there are lots of criminals who are bad. Who aren't bad. I don't know, MLK, Malcolm X, Gandhi, all of our founding fathers, Robin Hood, all All of them criminals. Are they all bad people because they're criminals? No. So I'm not, again, not saying she's wrong, saying understand the nuance. It isn't so, and I'm using this on purpose, it isn't so black and white. It isn't so black and white. That's what I'm trying to get at here. It isn't that simple.
You would be hard pressed to find, a Jewish person who has spent 5 stints in prison, who commits a crime and dies while committing a crime, and that the Jewish people champion and demand justice for. You will be hard pressed to find this in white America. You will be hard pressed to find this even in Latino America. There is a person.
All true, but there's one difference between all of them. One difference. In the case of Italian Americans, Irish Americans, Jewish Americans, Latino Americans, all of them struggled. Of course, she is correct. All of them had to get over different parts of cultural biases and prejudice. 100% true. Absolutely accurate. One thing they didn't have that descendants of slaves did have, 100 years of apartheid. If you count slavery, 300 years of government-sponsored violence against the community. That none of them had. And that's the nuance. So to just say, well, why aren't black people like Jews? Or why aren't black people like Italians? Or why aren't black people like Irish? Well, if they all had 300 years of state-sponsored violence, I would agree with you. All I'm saying is they aren't the same. It doesn't mean black people are all victims. Please don't go there. That's not what I'm saying. It also doesn't mean that black people can't be successful. Of course they can. But it means they're different. So for you to just blatantly say, why aren't black people like all the other immigrants? Because they're not. That's the reason. And when the Irish came and the Jews came and the Italians came, they came as immigrants and they came voluntarily. Blacks didn't. And when we got released from slavery, it wasn't like they said, welcome. No, they literally made laws to keep us as second-class citizens. Now, again, did the Jews and Italians and Irish come here as second-class citizens? Yep. Absolutely. Of course they did. Yes. But there weren't laws that said, I will now be violent against them and stop them from integrating. That didn't happen. That happened to black Americans. It's different. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's different. She is acting like it's black and white, not even bringing up 100 years of apartheid, not even bringing up anything. Again, people start saying, well, Larry's telling the truth. I'm not saying she's wrong. Please don't get that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying she's not accepting the difference between these two. The loss of culture. Lots of people tell me, well, the Irish were enslaved and the Jews were. They all were. Sumerians were enslaved. Lots of people were enslaved. But there's the big difference. Number one, when all those other people were enslaved, they were allowed to keep their culture. Black people were not. Not just that. If you were a slave in the Roman Empire or whenever you were a slave, if you were a slave and you had a child, your child was not a slave. In every other issue of slavery, you were a slave because something happened. Your people lost the war, or your people did something bad to the king, or insert action here. Somehow culture could accept that you did this thing that culture decided was bad, and losing a war or whatever, and now you're enslaved. That's how that works. You're enslaved. But your children weren't enslaved. Why? They didn't do anything wrong. So slaves could have free children. Where was that different? America, that was different. You were enslaved because you were black. That was the reason. Your sin, as Ice Cube said, was your skin. Your sin was your skin, not the action that your tribe or people did. That is a difference and a nuance that sticks with so many black Americans to this day. The fact that we're black means that we were enslaved, not because we lost the war or did something wrong or made the king angry or insert reason why people in the past have been enslaved or were the wrong religion or didn't worship their God or insert thing here, right? Those are reasons why people were enslaved throughout history. Not in this case. In America's case, you were enslaved because you were black. Your children were enslaved. So you weren't even human. You were just an animal. That's a difference. And then when freed, if you were a freed person in the Roman Empire or wherever you were hundreds of years ago, You could then become a citizen. You could then vote. You could buy property. All those things. You were now okay because you were no longer a slave. Your kids could buy your freedom. That happened throughout the world. Not in America. And then once we're freed, we get 100 years of apartheid. So now even when we're free, we're not free. Apartheid was even worse for our culture because we didn't go back to Africa. We didn't get a homeland. Let's go one step further. Every other one of those people she brings up, Italians or Irish or Jews, they all have a homeland. Black Americans don't. There's no homeland for Black Americans. Where's the homeland? Africa? It's a continent. That's a country. It's not a nation. Everyone else has one. Italians have Italy. Jews have Israel. Insert thing here. And then when the horrible things happen to Jews, which I hear all the time, it's true, horrible. When the bad things happen to Japanese Americans, terrible. What happened? Government said sorry. The government gave reparations and allowed them to be free. When slavery happened, no reparations, no sorry, can't be free. That's the exception. So there is a nuance here that makes it harder. That's all I'm trying to get at. To link them directly is unfair, and she should know better, but she either doesn't or doesn't want to care, whatever. She should know better, and you should know better. There is a nuance. It does matter, and you should look at that and go, you know what? As I said earlier, all I want from you, I don't want you to think Candace is bad. It's not what I want. I don't want you to feel sorry for me. Please don't. What I want from you is only one thing, a little bit of empathy. Just go, okay, you know what? I get it. Larry's right. It's tougher. It's different. If you come away with that, I'm good. That's all I want.
That is spent multiple times in prison. You are not going to see a bunch of Latinos coming out demanding justice for this person, even if, and I want to be very clear, what I'm saying is not any defense for Derek Chauvin. I hope Derek Chauvin gets the justice that he deserves to be, implemented upon him, and that the family of George Floyd deserves justice for the way that he died. But I also am not going to accept.
There we go. There's the but. But is an emotional eraser. That's what it does. I love you, but I don't really love you, right? I hate you, but I don't really hate you, right? The but. I respect you, but I don't really respect you. I want him to get hurt, but here are all my reasons why I'm going to validate what he did and make it kind of okay. That's a problem. That's a problem. Just say, guy should go to jail. Move on. I don't know why you even had this conversation. I didn't. Why is she having this conversation?
The narrative that this is the best the Black community has to offer.
Who said that? This is fabrication. Many of her things are exaggeration or omission. This one is literal fabrication. Nobody is saying George Floyd is the best the African community can provide. No one's saying that. That is literally just making things up. That is total fabrication.
For whatever reason, it has become fashionable over the last 5 or 6 years for us to turn criminals into heroes overnight.
So we've never done that before. Robin Hood, Gandhi, all our founding fathers, Malcolm X, MLK. This is a new thing. We've never turned criminals into heroes overnight, ever. And why are they overnight? And who's making George Floyd a hero? No one's saying he saved babies from burning buildings. They're saying he's a martyr. A martyr is not necessarily a hero. They may be. They're saying he died for no real reason. Let's be clear about this. I want to be clear on this. No matter what someone says about how good or how bad George Floyd was, and I'm going to cover that in a minute. If you keep, I'll cover all of that in a second. He did not deserve to be choked to death publicly. And I want to be clear about that. People saying, well, cops don't shoot people as much as they shoot white or black people. He was choked to death publicly. And and again, I'm asking if you're white for some empathy here on why that's so bad. Public choking is lynching, and that was used purposefully against the Black community, used against Black men to try to keep Black people in line for at least 100 years, if not 300 or 400 years. And remember the difference. When you execute someone, and as in hanging, the knot is on the side. The bottom drops out, the person falls, snaps their neck, dead. That's actually not a bad way of dying when it comes to executing someone. Please don't execute people. But that's not a bad way. That's not how lynching is done. The knot is in the back so that you are literally choked to death publicly. You feel and kick and struggle, and everyone has to watch. The Black community has to watch. And usually it's a strong Black male. That was purposeful. Watch the strong black male choke to death helplessly. You Negroes stay in line. That's what that was used for. When that happens to the black community, that's extra painful. Now, I know if you're not black, you may not get that. And you don't have to get that. I'm not asking you to feel. Feel for me. It'll be sorry for me. I'm asking you to have some empathy and some understanding. Do you get how that strikes the black community? Right? Think if she uses Jewish people. Think if you're Jewish and all of a sudden you got people put Jewish business on your business and spray paint it with a swastika. That's Nazi Germany stuff. Now, I can't imagine how that would feel as a Jewish person seeing that happen. But I at least can understand that will have a stronger emotional, just a reaction if I was Jewish because of Jewish history. I get that. Because of black history, choking a black man out publicly is extra bad. And again, she should know that. There is a nuance to this as why this becomes so hard for us, why it's so bad for us. In our view, it was a public lynching. That's why. Please just understand that.
And it is something that I find to be despicable, and it's something that...
Yeah, she finds making criminals heroes despicable, except for Gandhi, MLK, all our founding fathers, Robin Hood, except for them. No, you only find despicable because the person was against your people, meaning the cops who you think are always perfect. That's the reason.
I refuse to stand by any longer, and I am not going to play a part in it, no matter how much pressure comes from black liberals and black...
There's no pressure coming. That's also fabricated.
Conservatives, as some token of people wanting you to believe that this is the only way you can be black, is you have to say this was wrong, and that this person was amazing.
See what she does now here. She combines three things in one sentence, which is amazing. She says, pressure coming. People feel that. Yep. And that this was wrong. Yes. And that this guy was amazing. Who said that? Again, that fabrication. People aren't saying that George Floyd was the greatest guy in the world. People aren't saying he's Jesus. Meanwhile, by the way, Jesus also criminal and also martyred. But that's fine. But we just started doing this, except 3,000 years ago? Anyway, 2,000 years ago? Yeah, except for that. But in any case, people aren't saying that. But she links them together. But they're totally separate. They're separate issues she links together. And people go, yeah, he was a bad guy, which validates his death. What this video is actually doing is saying because George Floyd was not perfect and not awesome, somehow his death is okay. His death is not okay.
Won't do that. George Floyd was not an amazing person.
So again, what meaning he deserved to be choked to death publicly. That's a problem and not true.
And as soon as this video hit the internet, I did just basic searches. Everyone jumped on it.
Why? I didn't. When this video hit the internet and you saw a black man who was literally on the floor, handcuffed. Say it again. On the floor, handcuffed. Being choked to death. The first thing you did was see if he deserved it? That's what she just said. The first thing I did was check the internet to see if he deserved getting killed. He didn't. He didn't. Even if he was a bad guy and just robbed that joint or just shot somebody, it doesn't mean that he deserves to be publicly choked to death. And she's trying to say that it is. Why would you even look? I didn't look. I didn't care what his background was. Don't publicly choke black men to death. If he did something bad, put him in jail, execute him, lock him up forever, insert thing here. Whatever that thing is, make him pay the price if he's a bad guy. But don't lynch him. Unacceptable. Tone deaf. You should not hear that.
And was looking at the police officer, and everyone agrees that the police officer was wrong, and the police officer has been arrested. So that is not the reason I'm not discussing that, is because that is not something that has been misconstrued in the media. Mm-hmm. He has been turned into the devil that he is, and there is no reason for us to harp on that any longer, because white Americans are not uplifting Derek Chauvin as a victim or pretending that he's an amazing human being. But George,
there we go. But of course, you knew a but was coming. The but is the eraser. Yeah, all these bad things. But let's forget about the guy who killed him. Let's focus on the victim who was publicly choked to death. And that's fine. Let's just keep doing that. I can't believe this. Terrible.
Floyd is being uplifted as an amazing human being.
No, he's not. Who is saying that? Who is out there going, George Floyd was saving kids from burning buildings? George Floyd was giving money to the poor. No one's saying that. They're saying he is a man who did not deserve to be choked to death publicly.
For those of you who have not yet seen the clips and did not pursue or wait for more clips to come out, first and foremost, George Floyd at the time of his arrest was high on fentanyl and he was high on methamphetamine.
Deserves to be choked to death.
Both of his autopsy reports.
Why does that matter?
Pursue the 911 transcript. You can see the person describing somebody.
Oh my God, he was high.
High.
No one ever gets high. No one gets drunk. Only him. Choked him to death publicly. Why is this even a thing? Why would she even talk about this?
Something, and then he was outside acting weird, and
he was acting weird.
Their police call said that this person was obviously distorted and on drugs.
Oh my God, on drugs.
He is put into handcuffs and is put against the wall.
Yep.
A baggie of what looks to be like cocaine or.
Oh my God, a guy had cocaine on him. Choke him to death. Everything she's saying is trying to get you to think that what happened wasn't that bad. That is my problem. This was bad. Just say it and move on. Why are you trying to say because some guy broke laws? Because this is the worst part. What she doesn't bring up at all, and what nobody who talks in the same vein as she talks brings up, is the biggest reason for all these black men to be in prison, which she'll cover later, and all the bad things people do, is the racist war on drugs, which was started by Nixon purposefully to hurt what he called leftists and blacks. Think I'm making that up? Do your homework. That's a fact. That's what Nixon wanted. That's why he started the war on drugs. And we've been doubling down through Carter and Reagan and Bush and Clinton and the second Bush and Obama and Trump. Every president has just doubled down on this war on drugs, destroying the black family for 40 years. And now it's starting to hit the white families. And when it hits white families, now it's a crisis. Now it's a crisis. Let's start changing. But 30, 40 years ago, it was destroying families left and right in the black community. Of course it was. The war on poverty and the war on drugs has been crushing black families for 40 years, 50 years, crushing them. State-sponsored violence. That isn't even part of it. Well, he's a criminal because he had white powder on him. You're telling me that half the guys on Wall Street right now don't have white powder on them? Guys who are crushing up Adderall and snorting it? Do they deserve to be choked to death? But this guy does.
It's white. It's a white baggie he drops onto the floor.
Kill him.
You can see in an image. If you
do you understand
the media is refusing
the silliness in this?
You can find it on
the media is refusing because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
If you use DuckDuckGo and look up
go
George
do that
Floyd,
so you can find out he had white powder and feel better about your cop killing somebody.
He had drugs on him at the time of his arrest.
He had drugs on him. Murder him. Why does that matter? This is typical cop stuff. Bad cops always do that. Good cops often are quiet and walk away, which is what you probably should have done, Candace. But they do that. Instead, bad cops go, oh, but he had a gun on him. Oh, but he had a bag on him. Oh, but he had drugs on him. Therefore, I can beat him to death. Or in this case, choke him to death. Or shoot him. Or insert thing here.
Now, barring all of that, nobody thinks that he should have died during this arrest. But
then what? But, again, keep hearing about nobody thinks he should have died. But he did have white powder on him. So if he dies, he dies. Why in the world is this okay? And people like this. This has millions of views. And people going, yeah, she's right. This guy, he's bad. So he's dead. Why are people rioting?
What I find despicable is that everyone is pretending that this man lived a heroic life.
Nobody is pretending that. What I find despicable is this thing I just made up. She made it up. I find it's despicable. Again, I'm used to despicable twice because despicable makes me sound righteous, even though I'm not. That's what she's actually saying. Despicable is a word I use to make you think that I'm righteous, even though I'm totally not. Even though I just made this up.
When he didn't. And I want to talk about what his lifestyle was leading up to this.
What his lifestyle was. Boy, you aren't tone deaf on that one, are you? What his lifestyle was. So he deserves to be publicly lynched. Yeah, you aren't tone deaf at all. You get the black community. Yeah, you do.
This moment and why I refuse to accept the narrative that this person is a martyr or should be lifted up in the black community.
No, martyr or lifted up in a black community. You can be a martyr and not be that. But she links them on purpose and then says he's not a good guy. So therefore, she says constantly, well, he shouldn't be killed, but he's a bad guy.
And that we should be buying T-shirts with his name on it, okay? So here we have, first and foremost, let's start from the bottom of his record.
This is great, and
people love this. I am not saying that if you have a record, you don't deserve a second chance.
Here's the next thing. I'm not saying if you have a record, you don't deserve a second chance, but you never deserve a second chance.
I think people get arrested, and some people can serve time in prison, and I believe in second chances, but I do draw the line.
But, and then this is what she says, I believe in second chances, but I drew the line at.
When it comes to second.
Oh, I thought she liked second chances. I believe in second chances, but, again, the eraser, which is how she speaks. She's always erasing what she says, right? But I drew a line on second, third, and fourth. Yeah.
Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth chances. 1998, he spent.
So what that means is once you do something wrong twice, then we can choke you out publicly. Is that what it is? Is it 4 times? When does the choke someone out publicly part come in? I'm not sure when that is. In my view, it's never. It's give someone the rights they deserve as an American citizen, give them a trial, and if you go to jail, then you go to jail. If you get double, triple time, and you go about 40 years, fine, 40 years. But at no point is it okay to publicly choke someone to death with just by a cop. That's never okay. I don't care if it's the 9th chance.
10 months in prison for theft with a firearm.
Oh my God. Theft with a gun. That makes it even worse. I mean, he had a gun. Clearly he's evil.
First prison stint that I could find on him. In 2000.
Why are you looking for this? This is what was disturbing of me. She was trying to find a reason for him to be bad. She just had to validate her system. My system I got ahead in the system, therefore you all can. I guess so that every white person, I should be mad at every white person because Jeff Bezos made $1 billion. Why didn't you? Is that what we're going to now?
2002, he spent 8 months in prison for a cocaine offense.
Cocaine? Yeah, he had drugs on him.
2004, just 2 years later, he spent another 10 months.
So could this be the racist war on drugs that made it so hard for him to get a job? Could it be the racist war on drugs that made it easier for him to make money in other ways? Could it be any of that? Could it be that any of these heroes that we see in the Black community tend to be in entertainment and or sports, which is entertainment, which is actually the way that most of America has accepted Black people to move up and not through business? Could that be one of the reasons why that might have happened to a 40-year-old man right now? Could that be one of them?
In prison for a cocaine offense. In 2005, he spent another 10 months in prison for having less than 1 gram of cocaine.
Less than a gram of cocaine. This guy should be. Why didn't we kill him earlier?
On him again. In 2007, and this was the biggest instant
Watch this one.
that I had that made me realize this was a horrible human being that I am not going to pretend was a good person. In 2005, a woman who was pregnant received a knock at the door.
Random
she
woman,
went
I'm
to
sure.
the door, and the person pretended to be someone that worked for the water department. So she opened her door.
She opens the door
and quickly realized that the person at her door did not work for.
Nope, it was a lie.
And
Set up.
Attempted to slam it. At the moment that she was attempting to slam it, a Ford pulled up and another 5 men jumped out of the car.
6 guys come in.
One of which was George Floyd.
One was George, part of the gang.
And they forced their way inside to her home.
Pushed her in.
Inside of her home. Mind you, this woman is pregnant.
She's pregnant.
At that point, George Floyd took out a gun and pressed it to her stomach. She was screaming, begging for her life, and he put her inside of her living room and instructed one of his criminal friends that was with him to watch her and to make sure she didn't leave the living room. So he was playing guard while they ransacked her home looking for drugs and money. They did not find drugs. They ended up taking, I believe, her wallet and her cell phone. Fortunately for her, her neighbor observed.
So let me ask you this question. Why in the world would that happen? Why would 6 men randomly target a pregnant woman searching for drugs? Could it be, again, the drug war? Could it be that maybe this woman was the side piece of one of the people they were dealing drugs with or against or fighting or rival gang? She was the side piece of that guy. They probably chased him because he owed them money. They thought that the drugs and stuff were there. They took her cell phone to get him because they're fighting back and forth. Because the war on drugs ensures that you can't be a regular business person in the ghetto when it comes to selling drugs. You can't. You don't get courts. You don't get cops. So everything is street justice. That's what it is. I'm not validating what he did. I'm going back to a nuance. All I'm saying, again, I'm not saying George was a good guy. I'm not. I'm saying look at the nuance. She says, this is a guy who puts a gun to a pregnant woman's belly. Like it's random. Like he just decided, let me kill a pregnant woman today. No, of course not. He's part of the drug trade, clearly. He works in the black market, clearly. That's obvious. He's a black market trader. Clearly, she was probably part of that, And they went in trying to get drugs from, she was probably a side piece. That doesn't excuse it, but it doesn't make it anywhere near as bad as she makes it sound. That pregnant one was probably part of the whole deal. Again, not validating it. Nuance. That's all I'm saying. Nuance. But this makes it sound like every black man is a criminal and every black man's evil and they want to shoot random pregnant women. That's not how it works.
What was going on and caught the license plate of the people as they pulled off and called 911. And when 911 was able to, they were able to track down the car of which George Floyd was the driver, and they arrested him. And 2 years later, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for that instance. Now, you can say the media is portraying it like he was just getting his life together after, being released in 2014.
Look at how I said you can say the media is getting his life together. Maybe he was. And maybe he wasn't. Maybe that last in prison squared him away. Maybe it didn't. I have no idea if either of those true. But let's say he was squared away. Sake of argument, I have no idea. He was squaring himself away. He had learned his lesson. He was going to go straight. Then, wow, what a horrible tragedy. Let's say he wasn't. He was still a bad guy running in the drug trade and was about to go back and deal some more drugs. That's why he had the white powder on him. So he deserves to be choked to death publicly. I want to make sure we keep going back to that. This entire 15 to 20 minute spiel she's on is all about one thing. In her mind saying, it's okay that he was publicly choked to death. That he was basically, in a black person's mind, lynched. That's okay. She's validating that. I'm shocked.
Following that incident, he was just getting his life together and moved and was going to start afresh.
Maybe he was.
I'd like to believe all of those things.
I would like to believe it too.
Gap, and he never got in trouble for 5 years.
Not in trouble for 5 years. Maybe he was cleaning his life up. Who knows? We don't know. What I know is he's dead. That I'm sure of. That part I got down. And we can't ask him if he was getting his life together or not, because he's dead, because he was choked to death publicly.
Until this incident when the police were called on him again. But you are defying common sense to believe that this person suddenly became an exemplary character, but happened.
You are defying logic or defying common sense that he became who said he was? Again, fabricated. No one's saying that he was perfect and wonderful and saving babies from burning buildings. No one's saying that. She's made this up. Of course it would defy logic to think that all of a sudden he's become a saint. So he deserves to be choked to death publicly. I can't keep saying that enough.
To be high on fentanyl and methamphetamine, and trying to use a bill, a fake bill to purchase something.
Oh my God, he used a fake bill? Why didn't they kill him right there in the store? I can't believe they just executed him right there.
And so, in my opinion, George Floyd was a criminal.
And she laughs. He's a criminal. So let's kill him. No, there's a nuance to this. He's a criminal. Wonderful. Got it. Put him in jail. He was in jail. Execute him? Choke him out publicly? No. Laugh about it? No. It's not okay. It just isn't. It just is not okay.
He was a criminal. And just because he was a criminal doesn't mean he deserved to die.
Watch the butt, because she does think that. Then why did you spend the last 7 minutes of this video telling us about what a horrible person he was? If it doesn't matter, why did you spend days online finding out his record to show us how bad he was if it doesn't matter? I think it doesn't matter. I didn't look up his record because I didn't care what his record was.
At the knee of a police officer, but it does mean that—
But it does mean every single time she says anything that says he doesn't deserve it, she then finishes up with, but the eraser, because she does believe it.
I am not going to play a part of the broken black culture that always wants to martyr criminals, who wants to pretend they were these upstanding humans.
Always wants to do that. Is that true? Or could it be that in the black community, we've seen so many of our people be wrongly convicted, so many be wrongly jailed, so many be executed by the system? Could it be that? I'm just saying it could be that part.
Human beings that just wanted to help society, that just wanted to reach out and uplift society. And
who says this? This is total. She's making it up. I might as well say, look, I'm not saying, I don't know why people are saying that Martians have come here to turn our police force into killer robots. I mean, I'm not saying that. I don't know why people keep saying that. There's no difference in what I said and what she said. Nobody's saying that. I just made that up. And so did she.
He has a rap sheet that is long, that is dangerous. He was an example of a violent criminal.
Violent criminal. Who did he hit? Who did he kill? Who did he shoot? Nobody. Who did he shoot? Of all the things he's convicted of, things he did, who did he hit? Who did he kill? Who did he shoot? Nobody. Okay.
His entire life. Okay.
Whole life.
Up until the very last moment. Now, again, I want to be clear. This is not a defense for Derek Chauvin. No one in.
Watch the butt. This is not a defense for Derek Chauvin. This doesn't mean this. No one deserves this, blah, blah, blah. Even though I spent the last 8 minutes telling you why he deserved it, no one's saying that except me for last 8 minutes.
That I have spoken to, no one in the news is defending Derek Chauvin. He is getting what he has coming to him. Okay, great. But why?
There we go. But why? Every time. But because she doesn't believe it.
Why are we pretending that this criminal should be upheld as a citizen?
Who is, well, first off, because he was a citizen, but that's the reason. But that's okay. But who is saying he's a god? You made this up.
As a martyr in Black America. A martyr for a fake narrative, by the way.
Oh, here's the fake one.
Police brutality, racially motivated police brutality is a myth.
Made up.
Okay, so let's get into that. Not only are we using this death, right, and allowing it to cause.
And this is what it's about. She wants to just say the system is fine. It's you silly black people, you black men who keep screwing up. If you would just get over 100 years of state-sponsored violence and then 50 years of a drug war that's decimated your communities, if you would just get over that, God, what's wrong with you? Then the system will be perfect for you. That's what she's trying to say.
These riots and protests, pretending this was some upstanding citizen of the Black community who was tackled down and killed for no reason, right?
Yes, you were. He was. That's what happened. And she's like, no, it's not.
Right? Not only are we allowing it to inspire riots in which Black people are dying, in which actual upstanding Black citizens.
Because only upstanding Black citizens deserve to live.
Are dying. Case in point, I'm sure you guys have all now seen.
Let's come up with the example.
David, the sheriff that just was shot and killed.
He's a sheriff.
Because
she has to bring up a cop because in her view, and she believes this in her heart, police officers are better than us. She believes that. That's why she brings up a sheriff, law enforcement. In her eyes, cops are better than us, and that's why she says this. And you'll see what I mean in a second. I'm not making this up. You'll see what I mean. Watch what she says.
He was trying to protect a pawn shop.
Yep.
Please look him up if you haven't seen it. I'm blanking on his last name. His first name is David, who was shot and killed for trying to protect a pawn shop from looters. An upstanding citizen, an actual head of a police. He was the head of a police his entire life. 77 years old. Did everything right.
Everything right. How does she know that? Let me ask you, Candace. Did you go on the internet and check him out and see if he beat his spouse or abandoned his kids or shot somebody? Did you go check him out? No, you didn't, because you don't have to, because he's a cop and therefore did everything right. It's important that you hear what she's saying and what she actually means and why she's saying it. It's important. There's a nuance here. Not all cops are bad, and I've been saying that forever. My father was in law enforcement. He was a cop, and then he was a Rikers Island a corrections officer. I get it. And my mother was a victim of the drug war, a convicted felon and a drug user. Yes, I've seen both sides of this. This is not black and white. This is nuanced. And what Candace is doing is not helping. It's fueling the fire. I don't need anybody watching you to go, Larry, you're so right. Candace is evil. No, I just want you to realize it's not so one-sided. It just isn't. There is a nuance to everything. And the system is what we have to change. The system allows this to keep going and not going to stop. Getting justice for George Floyd, of course, is important, but not that important to me, because if we actually instead change our system, there won't be that many more George Floyds. It won't happen. I don't care if he's a drug user, a drug dealer, whatever he might be. Instead, change the system. And there were many of them. She does not want to change the system. Here is her answer. You know, make that cop pay, and then Black people get in line. That's her answer. I'm not joking when I say that. You'll hear it. She's actually saying that.
Right? So we now have to kill upstanding Black citizens because a non-upstanding Black citizen, a career Black criminal died. Now, did he just...
You say that like nothing, and then she goes, does she deserve to die? No. Watch the but, because every time there's a but, because she does believe he should die.
Deserve to die in that manner? No. I can't say it enough. No.
Why can't you say it enough? Because you keep saying everything the opposite. That's the reason. If you stop saying that he does deserve to die with everything you've said up until this point, you wouldn't have to keep saying he doesn't deserve to die. There's a reason why you have to keep saying it.
He didn't deserve to die in that manner. But I will be.
But every time, but she can't just accept that as true. Can't, because it breaks her system. And she cares about the system because she made it through the system. And therefore everybody else should. I got mine, so you should have got yours. I got through. Why didn't you? There's no difference in me looking at every white person and going, why aren't you Jeff Bezos? He made $1 billion. Why didn't you? No difference. Now understand that each of us has a different struggle. Each of us has a different way of doing things. Each of us struggles with our own issues and problems. We all do. And if you are Irish or Italian or Jewish coming in as an immigrant, you struggled too. Absolutely. And kudos to so many of those immigrants who came in and rock and rolled. You're seeing it now with Indian immigrants and Asian immigrants. Amazing things they're doing. Awesome. But none of them dealt with 200 years of slavery, 100 years of apartheid, and 50 years of a drug war. Didn't deal with that. Black Americans do and still have to. If you look at what has been happening in Black America, the data's in. Since 1920, which is probably the height of American racism after the Civil War, because Black soldiers came back from World War I and wanted equality and couldn't get it, began to go up. Everything. Everywhere you measure the Black family, education, income, family, everything going up, 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 up until around the 70s. What happens there? War on drugs, war on poverty. 80s, 90s. Yep. Government-sponsored violence makes it a whole lot harder for you as a Black person to get ahead. It's harder. Not impossible. Just saying it's harder. So let's end that and move forward. But she doesn't want to end that. She just wants Black people to be better. You know who else used to say that? Bill Cosby. He said that too. You're in good company.
Be damned if the rest of us upstanding Black citizens have to suffer because of this.
Yeah. Why should us successful Black people suffer for you people? That's what she just said.
Incident that rarely ever happens.
Never happens. Black people don't get killed by cops. Never happens except all the time.
In America. So here are some numbers.
Give me some numbers
for you people that are still believing that police brutality is a real, racially motivated police brutality is a real thing. First and foremost, okay?
Tell me.
You have a 25% higher chance as a violent white criminal of dying at the hands of a police officer than you do as a Black criminal.
Wow.
Last year, a total of 9.
25% higher chance of white. Oh. How many more white people than Black people in America? Oh, about 6 times? Huh. That's like 600% more. Only 25% more? It's odd. Those numbers don't match, but that's okay. Keep talking.
Unarmed black men were killed.
Unarmed Black men. How many times have we seen in videos now where cops literally put a gun down after the guy's been dead or shot or whatever? They throw a gun on him. How many times have we heard of cops putting drugs on them, putting guns on them, putting knives on them all the time, and then found out, oh, yeah, he was lying. So why would you believe that's that? Why would you believe it?
By police officers, and 19 white men were killed by police officers.
Oh, my God, so twice as much. Twice as much, even though they're what? 6 times the population? Again, numbers don't add up. And why would all these Black men be getting shot and killed? Could it be because of the war on drugs and the war on poverty that I've been talking about for the past 50 years? Yeah, could be that. Could be the last 50 years of state-sponsored hunting in poor brown, Black, and immigrant communities for the past 50 years. Could be that, but maybe not.
Officers. For those of you that aren't good at mathematics, right? You might be thinking, oh, but Candace, white people represent 60% of the population and Black people represent just 13% of the population.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what percentage of the population you represent.
It doesn't matter. We're going to forget math. For those of you who aren't good at math, you'll forget it. You know what? Let's forget about math.
It matters what percentage of the violent criminal community you represent.
Got it. What matters is what percent of the violent criminals that you represent. So clearly, there is something about Black men who just want to randomly be criminals more than anybody else. That's what she's actually saying. She's not saying there's a system that is hunting people like this, that is making it harder for black men to get jobs, making it harder for black men to support their families, making it harder. It's harder, not impossible, not victims, but have some empathy. Have some empathy for those of us who haven't made it to your level yet.
And unfortunately, black community commits a disproportionate amount of crimes compared to the white community.
See that? Because black people are just worse than white people. That's what she just said. Don't think she said anything else. That's what she just said.
Let me tell you, 6% of the population, right? Black men, 6% of the population account for 44% of all murders in this country.
So why would that be true? Why in the world would 6% of the population be responsible for 44% of the murders? And of those, most of those are black on black. Why? Could it be, I'm just going to guess here, could it be because the war on drugs has been so effective in breaking up families and communities that now nobody trusts anybody, and they begin shooting each other in the streets because they can't even have good gangs anymore. They can't even have good mafias anymore, which actually mafias had a better chance of keeping the peace than street-to-street combat. Could it be that? Could it be the fact that so many black men find themselves working in the black market because they have criminal records and now they can't work in the regular market? So they have to work in a black market. And the black market, you don't get cops. In the black market, you don't get courts. So the only thing you have is street justice. Could it be that? Just saying. Or it could just be that black people, for some reason, are violent, want to kill each other. It could be that. I mean, it's possible.
According to 2018 statistics, that is what you call a gap. And yet white people who represent 60% of the population, we represent 13, black men are 6%, only represent 50% of all the murders, right? That makes no sense.
So it must mean black men are evil. What else could you possibly come up with, right?
That makes no sense. A 6-point variation.
Can't be the war on drugs. And this is what drives me crazy. If you talk to people who just talk like this, two things they will never bring up: war on drugs, war on poverty. They will not bring up the system because they were able to survive and thrive in the system. Therefore, you all should. Therefore, the system is fair because they made it. Why don't you all make it? This is not the right way of looking at things. You want to have a fair system that allows people to be as free as they can be. That's what the liberty movement is all about. As free as you can possibly be to have entrepreneurship. She's talking about licensing that stops black women from braiding hair legally, or from black men before Uber from being gypsy cab drivers, get arrested for being a gypsy cab driver and getting a record from that. When I was in the Bronx, a kid in the 70s, a lot of black men would be gypsy cab drivers, which we didn't have Uber, and cabs wouldn't come to my neighborhood. So they would drive, right? And they'd paint one side of their door would be a different color, like the car's blue. They have a red door. And we would know that's gypsy cab. Many of them were either Puerto Rican or they were black when I was young in the Bronx in the 70s. And that's what we would do. That was against the law. Cops would arrest them. Now they have a criminal record. Yeah. War on drugs came. Boom. Everybody has a record. Giuliani comes. Arrest everybody. Stop and frisk. All black men. How can you survive? It's not easy. It's harder. So instead of just have some empathy, Candace, just say, you know what? Let's fix the system. Let's make it fairer. That's it. So I'm asking you for. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. I'm not asking you to give your money away. None of that. You don't have to say this. You are validating a broken system that now, by the way, white America is seeing. White America is seeing how when you're poor and white and when you have a meth problem, you have to plea because you can't afford justice. The white America today is seeing what black America saw in the 80s and 90s. Now white America is seeing it, how bad the system is. And guess what we're having all of a sudden? Bail reform. Why didn't we have bail reform 20, 30 years ago? Now we're having cannabis. Oh, why didn't we have that 20, 30 years ago? Now opioid crisis, it's a crisis now. It was 20, 30 years ago for the black community. It was destroying the black community 30 years ago. Why do you think guys like George Floyd don't have a perfect record? Look at a lot of poor white America now. Record, lots of them. Why? They've fallen into the same place. The war on drugs has expanded, and now it's too bad. So now they want to end it.
In a community where we are extreme minorities, we commit 50% of all violent offenses, evenly split, and we're only 13% of the population. Okay, so we have a lot more encounters with police officers.
Listen to this one. Listen to this one. We have a lot more encounters with police officers. Listen to this one.
And don't say the police officers are coming around because we're black. I'm talking about violent criminals.
Violent criminals, which, by the way, in almost every state, if you have a gun, you are by default violent. You don't have to use it. You don't have to brandish it. You don't have to hit anybody with it. You don't got to shoot anybody. You have a gun. You are by default violent. So, I'm talking violent criminals. That's all I'm talking about. So every time the cops arrest somebody and they don't find a gun, they put a gun on him, and now he's violent. Happens all the time. You know that. Do your research you did on George Floyd. Do that research. You'll find tons of that like there's no tomorrow. Tons of it. It's absolutely true. We're talking violent criminals. Well, then how do you know they're violent? Because you pull them over. How do you know that? The war on drugs, combine that with civil asset forfeiture, which she won't talk about, which encourages police officers to literally go in and seize assets from people. Well, where are you going to seize assets from? Are you going to go to a gated community or a wealthy neighborhood? Of course not. Those people don't carry cash. Number one, it's nothing to grab. And they vote. Might get your mayor or your sheriff in trouble. And they give money to people who run for office. Might get your mayor or might get your county executive or your sheriff in trouble. You don't go there. Instead, where do I go? I go to brown and black and immigrant communities to hunt. Of course I do. Why? If they're immigrants, they probably don't trust banks. Many immigrants have bad banking facilities in their home country. So when they come here, they don't trust banks. So they keep cash all over the place, in their homes, in their cars, all over the place. Yeah. And because it's a cash environment, so do all the small business owners. They're not taking credit cards. Some of them do, obviously, but they have a lot of cash. People do cash back and forth. And if you're working poor, the working poor don't have checking accounts. They go to check cashing places. They don't have banks. So they go to check cashing places, get their cash, and go. Well, man, and of course, illegal drugs. Tons of money there. Absolutely, tons of money there. So that's where the cash is. So the cops have been trained over the past 40 years to hunt in those areas. Well, to Candace's point, if the cops pull over 50 more black people than white people, they're probably going to find more guns and drugs and money. Yeah, that's kind of how that works, which makes them violent. What happens when the cops don't announce themselves, which they often don't? No-knock warrants, grabbing a guy, put him across the wall. You live in a gang-infested area, and then some guy grabs you, get against the wall. You think he's another gangbanger. You pull out your gun, you shoot him, you scream, you yell, whatever. Of course you do. That's the environment you live in. Why? Because we've made drugs illegal. We've made cannabis illegal, which makes violence. That's how it works. Why is Chicago so violent? She'll bring up Chicago. Why is Chicago so violent? Here's why Chicago is so violent. Many years ago, there were 2 or 3 gangs, major gangs in Chicago, and they had their own lines, right? This is my territory, your territory. And the only time they really had much violence was when one gang would try to cross the other one's territory. Otherwise, they did their own dealing within their own gang. I'm not saying that's good. I'm talking about violence. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not saying it's a good thing. That's how it was. FBI and local police forces work hard to break it up. They break the gangs up to where they're arresting people and everyone's turning on everybody, right? Everyone's now turning on the other guy, telling on the other guy, putting everybody else in jail. When that begins to happen, the family and community breaks up. They don't trust anybody. So now instead of having 3 or 2 major gangs, each block, each group is their own gang now. You just went from 3 borders to 400 borders. So now there's 400 border wars versus 3. Violence was multiplied multiple fold. The violence came from the war on drugs yet again. Every single time, war on drugs. George Floyd goes to jail for cocaine 3 times. War on drugs. Yet Wall Streeters have cocaine, or a lot of them use that other stuff now. But they use whatever they use, right? They use that all the time. They're not all in jail. And he's doing a hit on one of his gangbangers. Yeah, war on drugs. That's the reason.
I'm talking about murder, 44% of murders, okay? You want to talk about real statistics? The police officers have way more to be fearful of in the black community than the other way around, okay? We commit, on average, a police officer is 18 and a half times more likely to be killed by a black person than the other way around.
Wow, 18. Wow, I'm thinking, New York City is the largest city in the country by far, more than double the next one. 8.5 million people in New York City. New York City police force, give or take 40,000 people in the police force in New York City. 40,000. And the last time a cop was killed by a non-cop was 3 years ago. In 3 years, no cop's been killed. I'm sorry, they haven't been killed by other cops. So cops kill other cops in New York City. But this imaginary vigilante black people who are going around killing cops doesn't exist. has not one death in 40,000 police in an 8 million person city, not one cop killed in 3 years. This is fantasy.
Okay, so this entire narrative is complete smoke and mirrors.
Nope.
It's all made up. It's just election fodder. It's white versus black.
So I love this. She says it's white versus black election fodder as she creates election fodder. I'm trying to not do that. I'm trying to get you to see it's not black and white. It isn't a bunch of evil cops going throughout the city trying to kill black people. That's not true. And it's not black people who are trying to assassinate cops. That's not true either. It is a horrible system based upon the war on drugs and the war on poverty that has to end. The system encourages cops to hunt in poor brown and black communities and immigrant communities. It encourages cops who are racist to become monsters. And cops who aren't racist, which I believe completely is the vast majority of cops who aren't racist, to lean racist or to just shut their eyes and do nothing, to become apathetic. It encourages that. So, of course, people act that way. Let's change the system. That's what matters. My problem with what she's saying is she's not saying the most important thing. Change the system.
Because it's an election year, not because black Americans are suffering at the hands of police officers.
No, they aren't.
More
Made
than
up.
white Americans. Do some police officers do the wrong thing? Yes.
Watch the butt.
I don't think there's anybody in the world
Here comes
who
the
has
butt.
not encountered a police officer and thought this person is an absolute jerk who is power tripping, whether you are black or white.
Mm-hmm.
We know they exist. And we know they're always going to exist, by the way, because they're human beings.
Yeah.
And sometimes human beings suck. In fact, if you want to attack a community for accidental slayings or brutality, did you know that doctors accidentally kill?
Because this makes sense. I'm not saying that George is a bad guy, but here's why he's a bad guy. I'm not saying, everyone knows cops are bad, but did you know doctors are bad? Wow. Masterful distraction. Masterful distraction. Doctors are bad. Yeah, that's true. Some doctors are bad too. So are some truck drivers. So are some sales reps. All of them, yes. But the government doesn't sponsor them murdering and executing people. Doesn't. The government doesn't encourage them. The government doesn't say, "Hey, doctor, if you kill some people, that will fund your hospital." That doesn't happen. No, that doesn't happen. The government doesn't sponsor that, but it does sponsor cops. Yeah, it does. Big difference.
250,000 people every year because of mistakes. Do you know there's been doctors that have been arrested for being serial killers?
You know what? Since there's been doctors arrested for being serial killers, we should let cops choke out black people publicly. That makes total sense. I got you, Candace. We're on the same page. Me and you. I agree completely. That makes total sense. She's not saying that he deserved to be killed. She's not saying that. But let me give you 7 minutes of why he deserved it. I'm not saying the cop isn't bad. He's bad, of course. But let me now excuse him because of everybody else. I know he murdered people, but this guy murdered like 5. So
that just were killing people because they wanted to. Do we protest and boycott doctors? Do we assume all doctors are horrible human beings?
No, we don't assume all doctors are human beings because here's the difference. When there's a bad doctor, right, and there are, and you ask other doctors, is he or she a bad doctor? They go, yes, he's a bad doctor. Yes, get rid of him. He's a terrible doctor. I don't want to work with him. He's a bad doctor. Yes, there's a bad truck driver. Other truck drivers go, don't ride with that guy. He's a terrible truck driver. Oh, she's terrible. Of course. But when it's a bad cop, what do cops do? That's the difference. That's the difference. We have to protest because the cops won't self-police. Doctors will. Doctors get sued. Doctors get removed. Doctors go to jail. Yeah. Cops don't. So it's a big difference. If you got a bad truck driver, he doesn't have qualified immunity if he runs someone over. He goes to jail, loses the CDL. He's finished. What do cops do? They move to a different city and then kill again. That's what they do. Huge difference. Huge difference.
Because some doctors are? Or do we realize that society is not perfectible? People suck in every profession.
So people, it's not perfect. So let cops choke out black people publicly. I got to keep saying that.
It is no excuse to paint society with a broad brush. It is certainly no excuse to accept a Democrat narrative. Okay?
Oh, now it comes out. It's a Democrat narrative. That's what it is. In case you don't know something, Candace, I am not a Democrat. I ran against a Democrat. I'm not a fan of Democrats. So not really true.
That black people are being disproportionately hunted down by police officers because of the color of their skin. You want to know the best way to avoid not being brutalized by a police officer?
Tell me, you got the plan.
Is to limit the amount of encounters you need to have with.
See, if you black people would just stop being mean and go back in your cages, you wouldn't get killed by cops. Thank you, Candace. Oh, you have the plan. You know what? I know I had to wait 14 minutes to get that plan. So worth it. So worth it.
Them, especially when it comes to violent crimes.
Yeah.
Okay. I am not going to stand for this continual bottom-feeding narrative of us martyring people that have had 5, 6, 7 stints in prison.
So that means they deserve to be killed, right?
And then pretending they were upstanding heroes to our
No one did that. You made that up.
community. It's bullshit. It's
yes,
bullshit.
what you said
language.
is
it's absolute
correct.
bullshit.
What you said
and
is
I'm
exactly
tired
that.
of it.
Yep,
I'm
me
tired
too.
of having to play pretend. I'm tired of.
You don't have who's forcing you to play pretend? You're out here saying it's wrong. You're blaming the black community for everything. Your answer is black men are just bad. Stop being bad. Sit in your cage and be quiet. That's what you're saying. So I don't know. If you're pretending, you are really bad at pretend. Change your game.
Sitting here and being called a coon or an Uncle Tom because I won't play this bottom-feeding game with you. If you want to hang up posters of criminals on your wall and talk about them as your martyrs, do it.
You mean like MLK? You mean like the Founding Fathers? You mean like, I don't know, Gandhi? Yeah. You mean like Eric Snowden, who's a criminal also and also amazing? You mean if I want to hang them up on my wall, I can? Thank you. I have your permission because he is a hero. Thank you.
Do it.
I am.
You can do it.
I just did.
Kobe Bryant was my idol. Okay,
Kobe Bryant,
I'll keep a photo of Kobe Bryant. You can keep one of George Floyd and pretend he was an upstanding human being that just once or twice put a gun across a pregnant woman's belly. Could you imagine that woman right now? That black woman, by the way, right? Watching everybody pretend this person was an
everybody's not doing it. You made it up.
Who just at the age of 42 and 5 prison stints was going to get his life together.
Maybe he was.
I mean, it's embarrassing. We are embarrassing in that regard.
You are embarrassing,
right?
Yep.
This is why we have a cycle and a toxic culture because nobody wants to tell the truth in black.
Because nobody wants to tell the truth. I'm going to tell the truth. And the truth is, just because you got yours doesn't mean the system is good or bad. Doesn't mean either one of those things. I don't want people watching this to feel sorry for anybody who's black. Please don't feel sorry. We don't need sympathy. We don't need that. What we need is just empathy. Just understand that it's not black and white, that there is a system that makes it more difficult for us to move through. It's just true. And it's not because you are a bad person. You please, if you're white and watching this, don't think I'm saying that, you know, the cops are you and you are. No, I'm saying it's a system that started before probably most of you were born, is my assumption. It's a system that started when the war on drugs decided to crush what they called leftists and blacks. Literally, that was the goal. And that has now crushed the black community for 30 years. And then it started crushing white communities too. And now we're seeing it. This is what I'm talking about. It encourages racism. It's not racist. It doesn't mean you're racist. It encourages it. It encourages people who are racist, and there are some people who are. It encourages them to become monsters. I want to change the system. If we change the system, we'll have better cops. We'll have better people doing more things. The only people who are talking about that are libertarians. Nobody else is. The left wants theirs. The right wants theirs. And for the past 40 years, Nixon, Carter, Reagan, Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Trump, none of them have stopped the war on drugs. None of them have stopped the systematic crushing of poor people in America by destroying them from the war on drugs. None of them have. We're talking about ending it. She isn't. She's blaming black people. It's all their fault.
Black America. It's so easy to be a victim. It's so easy to ask white people to bow down and apologize and do all these things for us.
How's that easy?
It's crap. It's a lie. It's a farce. Our biggest problem is us, okay? It's why we don't talk about it when black on black crime happens. It's why we don't talk about it when 40 black people are killed in one weekend during Memorial Weekend in Chicago. We don't want to talk about any of it.
I just did. I talk about it all the time. Of course we do. Your people in your world don't talk about it. We do. Yes, we actually do. Yes.
That stuff. We don't want to talk about Baltimore. We don't want to talk about New Jersey. We don't want to talk about any of these places where black people are being slaughtered by other blacks, because that would mean that we had to be personally accountable, right?
No, that would mean we'd have to change the system. That would mean we'd have to accept the war on drugs as a failed war on drugs, and we should have ended it years ago. That would mean we'd have to stop with things like occupational licensing that stops poor people from getting ahead. That would mean we'd have to stop crushing poor communities. That would mean we have to stop voting Democrat and stop voting Republican. It would mean that Republicans have no answers for the minority community because they know the minority community won't vote for them, and Democrats have no answers because they know the minority community will always vote for them. So neither of them has an answer. Libertarians do, because we want you to vote for us. We actually have answers for these things. All of them. Of course we do. The two parties don't. And by you forcing this narrative of, Blexit, leaving the Democratic Party, yeah, but don't go Republican. They don't have an answer either. They didn't do any better when they were in charge. Trump isn't any better than Obama. Not when it comes to the war on drugs or black people. They're no better.
That would mean personal responsibility. We don't do personal responsibility in our community. We don't do it. We blame white people, right? We only point a camera to white people when they do something, even though we do it at a way higher rate to ourselves, right? We celebrate our drug dealers. We're the only community, right, that would ever create hashtags to free people from prison because they committed crimes, like free Meek Mill, free this rapper, free this rapper. How hard is it to not spend multiple times in prison?
How hard is it? Why don't you ask the average black man who's in jail? Ask them. If you knew any, you might ask one of them and see, and they would tell you how hard it is. Why don't you ask them? You know what I know? I know that my mother was a convicted felon, and I know how hard it was for her to get a job and to keep a job. I know how hard it was for her to not go back to her friends, because when you're in the drug culture, you lose all friends who aren't in the drug culture. So now when you want to come out of prison and go to that other world, they don't want to talk to you. They don't know who you are. They don't trust you. So what do? You go back to friends in the drug culture. You want to get a job? You can't get hired because you have a criminal record. You want to get hired? You don't have it. You can't get hired because you have a criminal record and you have no experience. Yeah, it's really hard. Of course it is. And white America's seeing that now too, which is why you have different states making changes for that, because they can't get jobs. It's really hard. Ask someone who's been through it. I know people personally who have.
How difficult is that? Is that too hard
yes.
for us? Is that way too high of a mountain for us to scale, to do the right thing, to be upstanding citizens? That is the call to action that I have for Black America with Brexit. Like, why do we keep fulfilling this narrative? What do you think the perception of us, by the way, is on the outside? You ever look at the comments? You ever go into like an anonymous blog and see what people say? Oh, just black people being black people.
Why do I care what they say?
I see those racist comments. Oh, just black people got a riot.
You know, if I just had a job, racism would go away tomorrow.
Just black people being ignorant. That is the perception. When people get to be anonymous and talk about us, that's what they think about us.
All I want is for America to simply have some empathy. That's it. I know I joked around a little bit. I know I spoke a lot about this. I get it. All I'm saying is it's different. It's not exactly the same. There is a nuance. It doesn't mean that the cops are awesome or evil. That's not true. It doesn't mean black men are awesome or evil. That's not true. They're just people. We're all just people.
Right? They think that we are the kind of people that will forever uphold criminals as
you mean like
the
Gandhi?
Martyrs of our society.
You mean like
that we will never
Snowden?
take account for the things that
you
we
mean
do
like
wrong,
all
right?
our founding fathers,
we
George
don't
Washington,
have it within
John
us
Adams,
to educate ourselves
all
to
of
get
them?
ahead, and that for
Malcolm
those of
X,
us that actually do it,
MLK,
well,
Robin
we
Hood,
get called coons, right?
Jesus,
You
all
got
those
Condoleezza
criminals.
Rice, she's a coon.
I never said that. I never said Condoleezza Rice was a coon. Stop that.
He's a coon. Dr. Ben Carson, brain surgeon, first ever to perform.
Again, what she always does is, let me show you the people who made it through. Therefore, all of you are losers. Right? Because these who made it through, they're all losers. I don't call them coons. Never have. Never have. I'm happy they made it. I hope more black people make it. Please, I hope we all make it. That'd be awesome. I'm not calling them coons. You are. You are. Not me. I'm not doing it at all. I hope we all make it. I'm just saying, let's stop. Again, I said, because Jeff Bezos made $1 billion, why isn't every person making $1 billion? Embarrassing.
The surgery of splitting twins that are connected by the head. He's a coon, right?
No, you make that up.
What a stupid guy he is.
Who said that?
Kanye West says he's not going to be told to do it because of the color of his skin. He's a coon. He's lost. He's in the sunken place. That's where we all are, right? Because we demand more.
It's very easy to be the victim, isn't it? Didn't you just say that? Didn't you just tell me how easy it was to be a victim? Sound like a victim to me. I'm saying I don't want to be a victim at all. I'm asking for some empathy that I would give to anyone else who was in a bad spot. Just some empathy. To just sometimes maybe just say nothing. Just let it go. Give them a thumbs up. Hope they can work out on their own. Maybe that. I'm not calling people coons. It's not what I'm doing. Never have. Still not doing it.
And we will get more out of this society because we're going to get ahead, right? That's what's going to happen. We're going to get ahead. Black conservatives get ahead because we don't subscribe to this narrative.
That's the reason. See? If you would just be a black conservative, cops wouldn't kill you. You wouldn't get arrested. You wouldn't go to jail. And you get ahead. Now we get it. If you would just not be a Democrat and just be a black conservative, you know what? Thank you. I know it was 17 minutes. Totally worth it. You gave me the answer.
To catch me outside trying to grab a TV pretending that it's because a martyr named George Floyd got killed.
Martyr.
Okay?
Because she doesn't think he deserved to die, does she?
I'm a big believer that no matter what color you are, you do stupid things, you win stupid prizes. Okay?
I know. And when Philando Castile was in his car, a legal gun owner, and had his girlfriend and his daughter, and when he was shot to death and murdered, and that cop got nothing from it, that was him doing, oh, wait, nothing. Nothing. That was him taking care of his family and being a good, law-abiding citizen, an upright citizen. That's what that was. Odd how that worked. Was he stealing TVs? I don't remember that. I don't think he was. I think he was just minding his own business, doing nothing wrong. And he was murdered. And people like you were saying, well, you know, cops, what are you going to do?
We have to do better. We have to teach our kids better, or we're not going to get ahead, right? Anyways, this is just a rant because I have been feeling super, super, super annoyed at these depictions in society. I have no apologies here completely to make. George Floyd is not my martyr. He can be yours. That's all I have to say to Black America.
Thank you, Black America. Black America is listening. Absolutely. Actually, I don't know if Black America is listening. I don't think they're listening to Be Forward with You. I don't think they are. I did. I listened. That's all I'm saying is I definitely listened. So all I want to say here, guys, is thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. I know it didn't take any comments. I will coming up here soon. If you want to have some comments, I'm happy to. The goal of this was not to attack what she said. I did, but the goal was to show you another side of this. It's not just black and white. Many of the stats she said were exactly true. Many of the issues she said were exactly true. But there are some systematic pieces, some cultural pieces that make this a whole lot harder than the average person might think. I hope some of you will watch this again and kind of see where my head is on this. I know some of you will be upset. I get it. Every time I bring up race, I feel awkward. I don't always want to bring up race. But I do want to bring up race when it matters. I do want you to understand that it's not the number one thing in my world, but it is part of my world. I hope you get that. And I want you to know that I'm always trying to the best of my ability to be honest and forward and show you what I really feel. Thank you guys so much. I'm glad you watched. Have a great night.